One of the 6 pillars of the AWS well-architected framework is cost optimization. In this video, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to show you how to set up an AWS budget alert. So let's jump right into it. Now, I am in the AWS Management Console up under AWS Budgets. If you don't know how to get here, you just simply log into the AWS Management Console. You start off on the main service page. Then you just type in budget, click on budgets here, and then boom, you're right here. So the purpose of this is, one, for you to set up a budget, and two, make sure you don't go over it. There's some other things you can do, but we're just going to get to the meat and potatoes here of what you need to do. So how it works, you create a budget, you get alerted, and then you respond with actions. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Like I say, this YouTube channel is all about making AWS simple, not more complicated. So, like I say, let's focus on simplicity here. Now, let's go in here and create a budget. Now, before we even continue, why would you even want to create a budget? Well, let's say you've opened up a free tier account and you're new to AWS and you're trying to learn this thing. You spin up some stuff and you put there's multiple regions. So you spun up some stuff in Northern Virginia, then you hopped over to Oregon, then you hopped over to California region, and you start losing track of where stuff is. You think you terminated everything, but lo and behold, you didn't. Without a budget, you got AWS costs just spiking up based on whatever you spun up, and you're not going to know about it until 30 days when you get handed a surprise AWS bill. Setting up an AWS budget eliminates all that. So the budget type we're going to pick here is just a cost budget. This is recommended. This simply means there's going to be a specified dollar amount that you specify, and we're going to set up a threshold. So meaning if you get close to that, or if you get to 100% of that, you can set the percentage of how close you want to get to it, up to and including hitting the actual cost amount for the budget itself. So this is already pre-selected. Let's click on next. All right, let's get rid of this budget preview here because we don't need that on the right-hand side. So how to set up your budget. Step 1, set the budget amount. Step 2, scope your budget, which is optional. This is where you can add different dimensions of data to narrow down the set cost of information, and you can select the different types of AWS services you want to focus on. For this, like I say, we're keeping it simple. We are aggregating the entire AWS spend within this AWS account, and that's what we're going with. Step 3, enter in the remaining budget details. For example, define the budget name. Super simple. So how about we go and do just that? Budget name. All right, let's type that in now. Thoughtful Techie Cloud Budget. All right. The set budget amount, including the period. We are going with a monthly budget. You can also do quarterly and annually and even daily if you're really looking at this close. Monthly should be more than fine here for this particular demo. I'm selecting monthly. Now, for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to select May, but you could drop down and put your next month's budget into this. But I'm just going to select May here for the purposes of the demo. Now, the budgeting method, I'm going with a fixed budget, okay? So you can do fixed, plan, auto adjusting, keeping it simple, just going with the fixed budget, which is creating a budget that tracks against a single monthly budget amount. So you have a certain number of AWS spend, certain amount of AWS spend, and you are going to set a budget and set a threshold for when you are going to become concerned when you start hitting that, getting close to that budget. So it looks like here within my account last month, I spent $762.10. So let's say that I want to set a budget for $800 because I don't want to exceed $800 in this scenario. You can set something that's respective to what you want to do. Now, if you are learning AWS, you're a student or you're trying to get into AWS and you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money and you have free tier, or maybe you don't have free tier anymore and you're spending up T3 micros and the smallest EC2 instance you can, and then shutting everything down. You might only want to set $50 here. So matter of fact, well, relative to my spend, I got to go with 800, because if I did 50 here, I'm automatically going to get a breach in my threshold. So I'm going to say 800, but set the budget that makes sense for how much you want to keep your budget within. Now, the budget scope, we're going to do all AWS services, which is tracking any cost incurred from any AWS service within this AWS account. Aggregate costs, we're going to go with unblended costs. This is just meshing everything together. If you're a finance major, you can do amortize or blend it. I don't have a finance degree, so I'm going to keep it simple and just go with the unblended costs. This is the real world stuff that's going to keep you out of trouble when it comes to your AWS bill, especially if you're learning this and you're footing the bill on yourself. Footing the bill yourself. Okay, we're not going to do any other options here, so I'm going to say next. All right, so now we are not done. We've created the budget. Now we need to create the budget alert. That's the reason we started this in the first place, right? So your budget amount is $800. Now we need to add an alert threshold for which there are currently none right now. Let's go ahead and add that. Alert 1, set an alert threshold. So I'm going to do a percentage of the budget amount. So I know my budget amount is $800, and they have like 80 as a default here. I'm going to just I'm going to be fancy here and say 73%, because I want to be extra specific on what I do. So 73% turns out is $584 of the budgeted amount of $80. So my threshold, when it exceeds 73% or more than $584 within a month, I'm going to get an alert. Now, what are my options to be alerted? The cool thing is I have 3 different options. Let me expand all these. You can be alerted via an email, by way of an SNS message, which is you can get a text message, for example, or send this to an SNS topic. You can also send this to a chat bot. So you can send this to things like Slack or Amazon Chime, which is pretty cool. So let's say you have an operations team and you don't want to have anybody looking at an email list. You can just have this sent directly to a chat bot or a messaging app. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to put in an email here, thoughtfultechie@email.com. And I'm going to skip the SNS alert and the chatbot alerts, and I'm just going to say next. So let's review the alert. I have a threshold of 73% of my $800 budget, and it will go to thoughtfultechiecloud@email.com, and it's going to be based on actual cost. And I just hit next. Review this. There's a budget type, the budget details, all the good stuff we just talked about. And I'm going to go to create budget. Boom. I've now created that budget. The threshold right now is marking as okay. And current versus budget has a little percentage mark here, which is currently within scope. So I am good to go as it stands now. So we've reached the end of this YouTube video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please go ahead and set this up right now. Trust me, you will thank me later. This will prevent you from getting a surprise AWS bill. And even if you do spend some stuff up and you forget about it, this threshold will eventually be hit. So make sure you put it at a threshold that you're comfortable with. So worst case scenario, if you did leave something on, you can catch it before your costs get out of control. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave me a comment on your feedback, as well as put any comments for any questions you have. And guess what? I'll see you in the next video.